Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Jonathan Alboum, the Federal Chief Technology Officer at ServiceNow. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Justin.
And Jonathan, I know you were in the federal government when the Cloud Smart strategy came out. And so I know that was kind of an evolution for cloud in the federal government at the time. But outside of what that actual policy document says, what does Cloud Smart mean to you as someone who is in government now? You're in industry. What does that evolution mean?
Well, that evolution you mentioned, I think, was a really important one, and the uh, the introduction of cloud computing into the federal government, came with a flurry of ideas about and opportunity, but there wasn't a lot of practical experience at the time, and we started with this idea of you should always use cloud. I think we called it cloud first before cloud smart. So when we started down this path of cloud smart, I think everybody was able to take a collective breath and say, well, now that we're learning this technology and these concepts a little bit better, let's think about the right places to apply them. It's not a one size fits all environment at any agency or any organization. So the opportunity to think sometimes collectively and then sometimes about an individual program or individual set of requirements and pick the right technologies is what we want to do. So when we were thinking about Cloud Smart and where to use cloud and where it could provide a real acceleration to the work that we were doing at the USDA where I was at the time, we wanted to embrace these technologies. And, just the idea that we wanted to, though, didn't mean that we necessarily could do so easily. Sometimes, the funding mechanisms had to shift, or the skill set in the organization needed to adjust. You may have had a large team that managed a data center, and now you needed people with some slightly different skill sets that it's around managing the service a provider is giving to the agency to get the same outcome, but the skills to ensure that outcome are different. So in some cases, we either had to adjust the way we funded activities or the way we staffed our organizations in order to make sure we got the right outcomes and were able to deliver on the mission. So it really was an evolution, and it was a period of I think great learning, and you can see the results today are really tremendous, and it's really changed the way government operates, and we're able to do so much more for the people that we serve because of technologies like cloud.
Just following on that thread, I mean, obviously there were a lot of changes. It was challenging at times to move to the cloud, but what ultimately convinces customers inside the federal government that they want to migrate to the cloud instead of staying on premise?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think there's always this sort of human nature instinct of, hey, I don't like change. I don't want something new. I'm operating these systems today and I'm doing it successfully. I think as we understood the benefits of cloud technologies and collectively started to think about where they provide a real value in an organization, one place that it was pretty clear to me was making a difference was if I didn't have to manage a data center and I didn't need the staff that was managing a data center, I'm able to redeploy those staff members to different activities. Maybe I could provide a better customer experience. Maybe I could be more focused on cybersecurity. Um, Suddenly, I have more bandwidth, no pun intended, to be focused on the mission, because I I want to be a business leader as a CIO. I want to be at the table as we're talking about programs and how technology can be a real accelerant to that program delivery. And the more time that you spend on operational issues, running a data center, running, servers, making sure, the systems are functioning, that's taking you away from that. So for me, the idea that I could offload some of these requirements that, all CIOs had to, a third party whose singular job it was to provide me an infrastructure as a service, and they were really good at it because that's how they made their money. Or a software as a service, where a company provided a software capability to me as I needed it. I didn't have to deploy the software. I didn't have to, manage and run it as thoroughly as I might in the past when it was on my hardware, my data center. I now had, more ability to be focused on the mission, to be focused on the business systems, to be focused on the data, to be focused on the customer experience, and the opportunity to shift my attention to those things that I know the agencies that I worked at really prized and really valued. To me, that was the thing that I relied on as I was leading the change in my agencies that transitioned us from a more traditional on-premise architecture and approach to an environment where we embraced cloud and began to use more and more cloud services.
And in order to account for this increasing cloud usage across government, how would you say the policies and processes that you use as a CIO or otherwise have to kind of evolve to keep up to date with that new cloud reality?
You know, there were a lot of opportunities in those early days for different organizations to acquire cloud services, to spin up a new cloud service and start using it. And you know, there's a part of me that really embraces the idea that anybody should be able to access IT and start using the technologies to meet the mission. Um, the other side is, wow, there can be a lot of risk that we're taking on into the agency, and we don't know it because we're not controlling for these different environments. And I think we recognize that the risk outweighed the benefit in a lot of ways, and we needed to have better processes around how and when we created new cloud environments, gave people access to these environments. So one of the things that I saw a lot of agencies do, and I support a lot of agencies at ServiceNow as they do these things. There's this idea of automating the various workflows related to cloud and other IT operations that make the policies and the processes that are right for that organization um, part of the fabric of how the operations occur, because we've automated it. We've made it very simple, so people always follow the same process. We can take the human out of the process, and to some respect too, through the automation I was describing. Now we're really reducing the risk of a rogue action, and we're also ensuring that we're doing things in a best practices kind of way. That is, I think, really important because cloud isn't free. There are sometimes expenses related to cloud that can surprise an organization, especially if there's not the controls that I'm describing around it. So one of the things another thing we do at ServiceNow that's very important from an agency cloud management perspective is we help organizations manage the resources and really integrate cloud resources with other technology assets that they have. So you can manage comprehensively. You can really have a real visibility into the way your organization is operating its IT, whether that is a software as a service or infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and all of that information can be brought into a single place in a tool like ServiceNow. Gives you the ability to really do good budget estimations, to really uh, simulate what your costs might look like, and even really think about things like cloud storage, which can also be costly. So without those tools and without the automation, a tool like cloud can be used in a way that adds more risk and adds more complexity and adds more cost. And really, its promise is to reduce all of those things. We're doing that kind of support work at a lot of agencies, and they're really seeing a benefit. So again, cloud is a great tool, but it has to be managed, and you need the right capabilities and policies and processes to get the most value out of it.
Okay, and another thing that's top of mind for a lot of agencies these days is artificial intelligence. President Joe Biden, of course, signed out an AI executive order last year that calls for the responsible adoption of AI across the federal government. Obviously, the cloud is a key piece of adopting AI. Can you just tell us what the cloud means for AI adoption, what it does for AI adoption across government?
I think when you're able to acquire a software as a service or AI as a service, a lot of software platforms like ServiceNow are building intelligence into the platform. It makes it a lot more accessible for an agency to begin to take advantage of these tools. And again, at ServiceNow, we're being very thoughtful about how we use artificial intelligence and generative AI capabilities to help organizations, government agencies, employees of those agencies, the customers of those agencies get the most value out of the investments they're making in not just ServiceNow, but the totality of their technologies by, again, through automation, through natural language processing, through very intelligent chatbots and other kinds of capabilities, case summarizations, helping people that are doing development in ServiceNow generate code and generate applications. Those things all occur within ServiceNow using domain-specific large language models that we create in ServiceNow that are managed by ServiceNow, and then a ServiceNow customer has access to those. And that's one way that agencies have direct and ready access to generative AI, and they can do it very quickly, and they can do it in a risk-reduced way by acquiring those capabilities through a cloud service. I think you'll see more and more agencies look to platforms like ServiceNow as a way to get the advantage and the benefit of these emerging AI capabilities and do it in a way that lowers their risk, gives them more control, and makes it a lot simpler for the agency to take advantage and move faster, which is what the public is going to expect, because you're going to see those kinds of activities occur across the economy. So there suddenly becomes this expectation that government can deliver in the same way that commercial entity can, and it's possible to do that. And a way to get there very fast is by using cloud services like I'm describing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion of the benefits of AI, and of course, there are also risks and a lot of discussion around those risks as well. Security is a big piece of that risk. When you think about the cloud, whether it's using AI or otherwise, what complications does the cloud pose for cybersecurity professionals?
Yeah, that's also a really good question, because I think in the early days, we would say, well, I don't know if this cloud capability is secure, and I know that my data center is secure. I would say I know, put that in sort of air quotes. You believed it to be true. You didn't. You might have control because you could see those, that hardware, or you directly manage the team that was responsible for it, and you're ceding control of all those things to a third party. And there's definitely a trust that needs to exist between the cloud computing provider and that customer, that agency. So from a cybersecurity perspective, you're now reliant on someone else to manage things in a certain way. So it really requires the agency to understand not just their data, but how that data gets managed. It really requires that agency to inspect how a cloud provider does their work, perhaps. The the positive side, I think, of this is that when a cloud service provider is responsible for the cybersecurity of their systems, it's make or break for their business whether or not they can remain, secure and on top of things, and that becomes, a large, if not their sole focus in a lot of ways. As a government agency, you cannot always provide that same level of attention to detail around every aspect of a cybersecurity operation or systems operation, because you're managing so much. So if I can, offload that in a way where I have assurance that it's operating at a FedRAMP high or DoD impact level 4 or 5, uh, I know that it has been authorized at those levels. I can feel more assured that the risk is going to be lessened and manageable, and I can accept that. So it makes it a little bit easier because maybe I have to manage less, but I really need to stay on top of what those cloud service providers are doing, that the environments remain secure, and that I have that communication with those organizations So there's more benefit, I think, than there is, risk in the end. But there's not zero risk, and we can't sort of lull ourselves into, thinking that I don't have anything to do any longer as the manage as the uh, as the organization that is, utilizing these services. I still have a lot to do. I have to understand my roles and responsibilities, but now I have a partner with a dedicated focus on cyber. So I think that makes, things better overall. It's just important for everyone to remember that there's still work the agency has to do.
All right, and we've spoken a lot today about this intersection of cloud, IT modernization, and federal customer service, how the federal government delivers services to the public. So how do you see that evolution playing out over the next few years, up to a decade from now? Where are we going?
Well, I think it's just going to get better and better and better for the people that use services provided by the government, including employees of federal agencies that are, customers of internal services. Things like artificial intelligence that make it easier for people to interact with systems and get what they want faster because the generative AI can do so many steps that the human used to have to do before, that we can accelerate, an outcome. Those things are going to provide, tremendous benefits to um, federal employees and the people those employees serve. I think that there's also, this idea that the customer experience as it improves will make it will make people feel better about utilizing government services. It has the better customer experience will create, in my opinion, more trust in agencies' ability to deliver services and provide people who really need them with the either the benefits that they deserve or the information that they need. Those experiences, those individual experiences really impact the way people feel about government. And the better they feel about government, the more willing they are to engage and the more benefits they can get from government. I think it can become a very, virtuous cycle. And, these services, the more and more that they're provided, um, you know, on demand, where someone can do the work when they want to do it, they can do the interaction when it's best for them. They don't have to go into an office necessarily, or they don't have to wait for business hours to get the information they need. The more value that there is to that person, and again, I think that builds trust. I think the executive order around artificial intelligence, is premised on this idea that we need trustworthy AI. And when we're doing good cybersecurity and we can create trust with the public, that we can manage the data, we can manage the systems, we can keep these things secure, we're again building trust. And I think that central theme of trust coming out of a modernized technology environment, one that's digitally transformed, one that is intelligent, that provides end-to-end services, um, that can be trusted, that provide real benefit to people. That's what I see the future being, and we're really already on that path. I think now is the time to take all the parts and pieces that we have and really put them together in a way that can accelerate this process.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. So again, I'd like to thank today's guest, Jonathan Alboum, the Federal Chief Technology Officer at ServiceNow. Jonathan, thanks again.
It was great to be here. Thank you, Justin.
And again, I'm your moderator, Justin Doubleday. You're watching Federal News Network. Now let me send you back to the studio for more on the Cloud Exchange.